Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Let's take a moment to talk about something that often goes unnoticed, misunderstood, or even judged. The path of women who choose to live alone, not out of sadness or isolation, but from a deeper, quieter place of power and self-awareness. Some women aren't waiting for a lover, and they're not yearning for one either. It's not because they've given up on love or are heartbroken beyond repair. The truth is more complex. These women have stepped outside of society's expectations that often tie a woman's worth to relationships or romance. Instead of getting lost in others, she finds herself. But this journey doesn't come with applause or companionship. It's a quiet unfolding, a kind of strength most don't see or understand. It's not about loneliness, it's about being highly selective, about choosing herself first after burning out from always giving. A woman without a partner can be unsettling to some because she doesn't rely on emotional rescue. She doesn't exist to be saved or completed. That independence challenges many assumptions about control, intimacy, and gender roles. She's not rejecting love, she just knows she doesn't need it to survive. That scares people. Yet, more and more women are beginning to recognize themselves in her. They're seeing their own reflection in this quiet, self-contained freedom. Carl Jung spoke about the shadow, the part of us we bury or deny. Some of these solitary women embody the very shadow society tries to suppress. They don't scream for attention, they whisper. They move differently. They're the ones who don't chase titles, validation, or lovers. They find peace in solitude while the world rushes blindly toward romance. And it unsettles others that these women would rather have inner peace than the temporary comfort of being adored. A woman without a lover isn't broken or incomplete. She's just operating at a level where nothing is begged for. Everything is chosen. She doesn't seek approval. Her mere presence is enough. That might bring criticism. People may call her names, thinking she's cold or arrogant. But behind that stillness is a deep presence, one that quietly defies the emotional chaos many accept as normal. Her love, when it comes, will not be a compromise. She's not interested in being half of a whole. She remains whole until love, the real kind, meets her at her level. You might misread her. She may come off as proud, aloof, or guarded, but what if her silence is where real love begins? Not the kind that clings, but the kind that frees. Her solitude isn't empty, it's sacred. People who don't understand her will label her, but she didn't wall herself in. She built a foundation meant to last. Jung also said we often project false versions of ourselves onto others. Many women mistake solitude for lack, when in truth, it can be the most fertile ground for healing and growth. While others chased connection in the outside world, she turned inward. She faced her own pain, questioned her past, and healed wounds she didn't even know she carried. She stayed alone because she finally healed, and calling that healing love didn't feel right anymore. It felt limiting. She's known for emotional chaos. She's been in love and lost herself there. She begged for less than she deserved, hoping it would be enough. But over time, she began to awaken, not through sudden epiphanies, but through quiet realizations. The disappointments didn't destroy her, they shaped her. Now she doesn't have patience for anything superficial. She wants depth, honesty, presence, not empty promises. That's why she may seem distant or unattainable. But she isn't. She simply knows her worth and no longer accepts attention as a substitute for connection. Loving her takes more than charm. It takes courage, the kind of courage most don't yet have. People who are still searching for themselves might find her intimidating, but those who've done the work, the real, inner work, recognize her as inspiring. She isn't finished just because she's whole. She still grows, still craves depth, still explores her soul. But she walks this path alone not because she has to, but because it honors her truth. She's not hiding. She's protecting something sacred. Being alone is not the same as being afraid. It's an act of preservation, not isolation. So next time you see a woman standing alone, not searching, not asking, not pleading, understand that she's not lost. She's walking a different path. And maybe, just maybe, that path leads to a kind of love the world rarely speaks of, the kind that begins within. The world battles to accept her because it still thinks happiness comes in pairs and distrusts soloists. Convention stifles authenticity, said Jung. Not convention, she lives by essence. She smiles calmly at, "You're too picky, you should be more open," and "Nobody's perfect." Others call her minimum standard picky. That took her decades to learn. She wants someone mature enough to love without destroying. Not perfect. It's not everywhere. She is frightened by her presence, not her words. She proves joy may exist without dependence, and truth exposes many. Exploiting female insecurity intimidates men. Women in the approval loop feel judged. She won't judge or debate. She is. The chained see this quiet realism as a sharp mirror. She deliberates, respects her speed. This alone disrupts a culture focused on fast results. Others seek distraction. She wants depth. Others settle for shallow ties. She seeks soulful ones. No is her truth, not a power play. She quits for dignity, not drama. She prefers solitude to empty company out of clarity, not arrogance. Her revolution is that wisdom achieved through suffering and sacrifice. She lives to be, not please. Indestructible, she threatens compliance-based regimes quietly. People fear her calmness, not her solitude. Jung said, "Those who look outward dream, those who look inward awaken." She chose awakening. It was hard. Remove her masks, face her emotional addictions, and rebuild from inside. Without others, she feels visible. Seeing herself changes everything. Maybe you've wondered if being alone is failure or freedom. Maybe you needed to justify yourself alone. She sensed it. Even if couples were unhappy, she thought being alone was horrible in a coupledom-focused environment. One day, she decided she'd rather be alone than invisible in a relationship. Her resolve was to never accept less than she deserved that day. Her voyage is flawed. Doubt, nostalgia, and silence fill days. Every conscious choice strengthens her, and that power, that empowers her. She learned true love does not rule. She wants love that empowers, encourages, and enriches her life without suffocating. She gets lonely until that love arrives, not out of pride, but integrity. This woman represents Jung's individuality. She confronted her shadow, went unconscious, and came back stronger. She rejects fullness after understanding herself. She wants someone who understands her, not someone who completes her. Few love that way because they fear emotional responsibility. Most love for lack, possession, or terror. Every step reminds her of lessons. Therefore, she travels alone today. Her no represents self-respect, and her absences teach us to never ask for love. She no longer needs to prove herself, and that confidence alters everything. Rediscovered women are deadly because of their understanding, not their weapons. Now she doesn't ask for love. Her internal fracture liberated her. The soul may disclose itself only in collapse. Jung believed a tree that grows to paradise must start in hell. What she endured. She entered the inferno of her own story, facing old worries, inherited pain, and traumas from all the women before her. Ending the cycle, she refused toxic partnerships. She learned she was forbidden to heal, save, or accept crumbs for fear of being alone. She stood firm, first with hesitation, then awareness, then invulnerability, when she stopped accepting less. The world tried to convince her otherwise. After abyssalism, absence is no longer feared. She can quietly feed and warm herself. She's not unreachable. She just opposes invasion. Opening one's heart is different from being torn. Only honest people without polished words or empty promises can enter. Experience has taught her to recognize genuineness from performative affection. Her perception is sharper, her energy filters, and she can sense shallowness from afar. She now leaves without hesitation. Her transformation was a paradigm shift, an awakening to an ancient wisdom embedded deep within her being. She realized that women were born not to conform, but to overflow, to express freely. Her emotions, once bound by societal expectations, were now liberated, independent yet not lost. She was fate-bound, but no longer clung to conformity. Coldness, aloofness, and unpleasantness no longer held any power over her. Her ambition was no longer to fit in or compete for attention. She simply shone. No longer waiting, she was the one doing the choosing. This shift in logic confounded those who tried to control her femininity. Leaving behind that place of limitation, she discovered that real relationships are born from loving oneself enough not to need anyone else. Her journey revealed that love doesn't demand praise or validation. It emanates from the quiet strength of self-assurance. Carl Jung believed that everything we face becomes our destiny, and she had scripted a path that few understood but many admired by continuously choosing herself. She no longer sought to prove her worthiness or solicit attention. She knew that company should be invited, not demanded, and if the invitation lacked sincerity, she would leave. No bitterness, just a dignified withdrawal from what no longer nourished her spirit. Few understood that, beneath her calm, she longed for love, but love that would not cost her her soul. She had forced herself into too many constraining molds for too long. Now, she only gave herself where she could be whole. This love required maturity, a deep understanding of the self, and a willingness to embrace both light and shadow. She rejected the fairy tale notion of love. What she sought was a union of souls that allowed her to remain fully herself without shrinking, dulling, or quieting any part of her. For many, this was overwhelming, but she knew waiting for true love was far better than living on emotional scraps. While others mistook her boundaries for arrogance, she saw it as self-love. She had moved beyond the need for surface approval. She demanded respect, not desire. Solitude had become her choice, her way of demonstrating that pure love never asks for self-denial. This shift in perspective changed everything. She no longer needed to speak loudly to be heard. Her presence, quiet yet undeniable, resonated deeply with those around her. The inner peace she carried, forged through years of struggle, transformed the atmosphere wherever she went. Jung believed that true completeness comes from integrating opposites, and this became her truth. She embraced both her light and darkness without apology, refusing to engage in imbalanced relationships. Those who only valued beauty had yet to understand love. She knew that sweetness without depth eventually becomes bitter. She was too full for anything less than real, transformative love, too free for any prison disguised as caring, too sensitive for weak, unbalanced partnerships. She kept moving forward, sometimes crying, sometimes standing tall, always grounded. She had learned that she was not alone. She had herself, and that was enough. After all the pain she had endured, she knew that no follow-up love could save her, and no external celebration could fill her. Her life overflowed with the love she had learned to give herself. Even when the world tried to tell her she was missing out, she felt something different. There was no pride, no rebellion, only a quiet certainty. Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming fully oneself. It was a rare, calm revelation. Her truth needed no loud declaration. She closed doors with grace and withdrew from anything that no longer nourished her. Solitude was no longer punishment but a spiritual act. She had stopped pleading for validation and simply was. People might tell her she was missing out on the distractions of fleeting romances and shallow affection, but she had already seen behind the veil. She understood now that love was never about finding someone. It was about never losing herself again. This realization affected everything. Desiring something created the possibility of lack, and waiting became sacred, filled with wisdom born from suffering. No longer bound by false expectations, she was free. There was a spark within her that could not be ignored, a remembrance of a self long forgotten, a potential yet to be realized. This inner truth, though painful, was a reminder that love could be different, that you didn't have to settle, that you could choose to be whole. The single woman is not alone. She is emotionally liberated, no longer seeking validation from outside forces, but building a life on her own terms. She is neither a leader nor a follower, but an independent soul who kindles small fires for those who are ready to awaken. Her story is a call to find new love, not the kind that fills a void, but the kind that nourishes and sustains. It's a reminder that before you can love another, you must first become the woman who will never accept less than she deserves.